Om Asato Ma Sadagamaya Tamaso Homaham Jyotirgamaya Mrityormam Amritam Gamaya Avir Maedhi Rudra Yate Dakshinam Mukha Te Namaham Pahinityam. Om. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. And reach us through and through ourselves. And evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. So my subject this morning is the touchstone of the Veda. And we're going to be talking about the scriptures of Vedanta, the Upanishads, and how to learn to appreciate and to understand their claim to authority. Veda means knowledge. And we're particularly interested in spiritual knowledge. And as philosophers, we want to know the answers to the age-old questions of life. What is everything made of? Is it matter? Is it mind? Is it spirit? Is there a God? Is it he, or she, or it? Is God one or many? Do we have a soul? If so, what is the relation of our soul to God and to the universe? Is there life after death? Are there higher worlds? Is there a universal moral law? And what is truth? And what is spirituality? These are all questions that are inquiring into an invisible, metaphysical, transcendental realm. We can't figure this stuff out by ourselves. The only way that we can understand and get some answers to these questions is by reference to the verbal authority of the scriptures. Now, verbal authority, we understand, because we know that we gain knowledge just through sense perception, and we gain knowledge through our own thinking and reasoning. But most of our knowledge comes from other people. It's things that we've heard from teachers and from authority figures, which have given us this knowledge. The scriptures are a kind of verbal testimony. of prophets and of saints and sages. And all religions have their scriptures. The word scripture means it's a special kind of religious literature. That is the lives of the saints, autobiographies, their inspirational and poetic works. But when we say scriptures in religion, what we mean is that they have some claim to revelation from on high. That's what makes them special. So let's look at this word called revelation. In the beginning, Brahma arose, the first among the gods. He found himself seated on a 1,000-petaled lotus, floating in an ocean of milk in the akasha of the universe. His job was to create the world, but he didn't know how to do it. And then he looked down and he saw that written on every petal of that lotus were the words of the Vedas. Looked all at those. He grokked them all with one look. Now he knew what to do. So he created worlds. And then he transmitted his knowledge to his eldest son, the Tarvan. And so it came down to us through a lineage directly from this higher authority and from the source. We're talking here about examples of revelation. We know, too, that in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, we read about an occasion where the gods and the men and the demons, all of them representatives, approached the great Lord Prajapati, the creator of the world. And they asked him for some religious instructions to guide their life. And Prajapati, seated in meditation, the thunder, the wind began to blow, the thunder began to roll, and they heard in the rumbling of the thunder the sounds, duh, duh, duh. People looked, what does this mean? The gods looked at each other, what does that mean? Well, obviously it means damyata. Damyata means control yourselves. Yeah, that's what we have to do. We have too much power. And the humans looked at each other and they thought, what does that mean? Well, duh, obviously he means datta. That means give in charity. And the demons, hearing that, they thought, what does that mean? Well, obviously, dayadvam, which means be a little more empathetic and compassionate. And so in this way, they all got their teaching from revelation on high. We have another example of Moses. Climbed up Mount Sinai to speak with God. And there he met God, and he saw God in the burning bush, and he heard his voice. And then God himself, with his own hands, picked up 2 great stone tablets, and with fire and lightning coming from his fingers, he wrote there on the tablets the commandments, presented them to Moses. And when he came down the mountain, he carried those tablets, the revelation from on high. We know too in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you remember how the master was one day walking through the gardens in Kamarpukur, and he had a vision. He saw the tank of water that's shared by the community there, and that tank was covered over with a kind of a green algae. Couldn't see anything. And as he saw that, he looked there, he saw a vision of the Divine Mother appeared. And she walked slowly over to the edge of the tank, and with one hand, she reached down and she moved the algae away. And the algae parted to reveal the clear, crystal clear water. And the master looked down, he could see right down through the water, down the stones at the bottom, and he just knew everything. So the Divine Mother had revealed to him. She didn't write, she's not the author of the scriptures. She didn't write the scriptures, but she revealed to him the knowledge, the higher knowledge. So this is revelation. Revelation as we know it, from the Judeo-Christian tradition, is always associated with a prophet. And there are certain men who are chosen by God, who are very special people. And they entered into a relationship with God. And he revealed to them the scriptures. This now we're talking about the account of the biblical account of Revelation. Now, Vedanta is similar to this, only the one difference is that the prophets in Vedanta, the ideal is that we all become prophets. And that we don't have to be any special particular person, but if we've trained our own minds, that we too can become prophets and receive this revelation. Now, in Vedanta, the prophets, or that is those who receive the revelation in the beginning, are called rishis. And rishi just means a seer. A seer means somebody who sees, who has a divine eye. That is, he sees with the third eye of wisdom. You know, we have different eyes to see different things. There is sensibilia, and there is intelligibilia, and there is transcendentalia. That's medieval Christianity. Three things that you can know. You can know sense objects, or you can know intellectual mental truths, or you can know transcendental things. The first is known by the eye of the flesh, the second by the eye of the mind, the third by the eye of the spirit. And so these rishis, they were seers. They had that power. And so they entered into meditation. They prepared their minds, and they meditated and calmed their minds. We could say that maybe they sat down and they tuned in their mental radios to the divine radio station in the sky, and they downloaded a broadcast, and that was the revelation. Swami Vivekananda was fond of put it a little differently, And that is, we could referring to the great discoverers, the scientists of the world, like Isaac Newton, who one day discovered the law of universal gravitation. It was revealed to him. He didn't think it through. He didn't see it with his physical eyes. It just came to him. And so these universal laws. Now, the scriptures of Vedanta, so that's the revelation. There are an example of revelation in scriptures. In the scriptures, in particular, we're talking first about the Upanishads. Now, you know the Upanishads. The 10, at least you're acquainted with the 10 Mukhya Upanishads, that is the most important ones commented on by Shankaracharya. This is the scriptures of this is the scripture of Vedanta. These Upanishads are a very small portion, maybe 3% of a larger body of revelation, which is called the Vedas, the revealed Vedas. And if you ever go into our monastery there, you can see one of the Vedas. It's called the Rig Veda. It's a huge, big Sanskrit book. That's one of the Vedas. And there's 4 of these Vedas. These are the revealed Vedas. And we're not interested, our focus in Vedanta is on Vedaanta, that is on the end of the Vedas, that is the Upanishads, that is just the spiritual and philosophical portion of the Vedas. That's our focus. But it's part of that larger revelation, which is all about religion and gods and goddesses and devotion and sacrifice and going to higher worlds and everything. But the Upanishads are particularly about philosophy and religion. These are our scriptures. These revealed Vedas are a small portion, minuscule in part of an even larger body of divine knowledge that constitutes the omniscience of God. That is all of the laws of spirituality and of nature, all of the principles and the axioms of science, all of the perfect, ideal, eternal forms of things in themselves that are universal, necessary, and certain. All of the essences, the natural kinds, the properties, the relations, which exist eternally in the Chidakasha, or in the mind of God. And God, that's what God uses as blueprints. Uses those as blueprints and templates to create everything in the world. And that's why we can understand the world is intelligible to us, because we also, in a way, can recall those innate ideas, and we can understand the world. Now, though we see here that good example of a principle in the Vedanta philosophy, and that is that knowledge comes from the higher to the lower. It comes down from the one to the many. In order to understand particular things, we have to understand. We have eventually to understand higher and higher generalization. In order to understand the meaning of a word, we have to understand the sentence. And understand the sentence is the paragraph, and the paragraph is the whole section. The section is the chapter, and the chapter is the book. And to understand the book, we'd have to go further to a larger and higher generalization, and we couldn't understand anything until we could grasp the whole corpus of infinite knowledge that has bearing on that particular object. So, we're talking about the Upanishads. This is our focus. They're part of this revelation, of this divine knowledge. And the Upanishads are what are called, they're part of a body of text, which is a kind of a closed collection of texts. And just as we talk about the canon, this part of the canon of spiritual literature, there are in the canon that of all spiritual literature, there are particular books which are regarded as the canon. That means a special a collection of texts which are closed and which are differentiated from all the other books by their higher authority. And so these Upanishads are then often called the touchstone of the Veda. The touchstone means in medieval times, they had the jewelers they had precious stones like silver, gold, and in order to test those stones, we would make them mark them on a piece of big black rock, which was a touchstone, and each one would leave in its characteristic mark, so that they would know which one was silver or gold. Otherwise, before chemistry, they had no way to be sure which was which. Similarly, it is with the texts here of the Upanishads. That is, they're the touchstone. They're the final authority. They're like the Supreme Court of religious literature. Now let's look here. It's a little more detail. I guess we're trying to talk here about how we can understand and appreciate the authority of the Upanishads. Swami Vivekananda gives us 3 arguments. First argument for their authority is that they are the most complete and the most undistorted collection of spiritual texts. The first means that they were composed over the course of maybe 500 years, maybe 2,000 years ago, before Buddha, before the Nag Hammadi Library or the Dead Sea Scrolls. And so they constitute by general agreement, are the first religious scriptures of the world. So that would be one reason. Second reason for their authority is that they are the most complete. That means we believe that there is a unity of religions. There's a harmony of religions. All religions teach doctrine, basic doctrines, eternal principles. The same principles can be found expression in all religions. But not all religions discuss all of the principles. That is, if we put them all together and we see the whole harmony, then we can discriminate in the unity those principles. But it's only in the Vedanta, that is in the Upanishads, where we have the complete full expression of all of the principles that constitute the universal religion. And therefore these Upanishads are considered to be the only full exponent of the universal religion. Third argument of Vivekananda as to the authority of the scriptures, and that is that they are the most undistorted collection of spiritual truths. You know that in religious, you're a student of religion, you know that when things are handed down, when knowledge, any knowledge, which is handed down from one person to another, undergoes a process, it's called the dialogic process. That is, it gets all mixed up. Little by little, the knowledge has a tendency to be degraded. But we see here, by the study of the Upanishads and this Vedic tradition of oral transmission, where they had all of these techniques and in place, that is, mnemonic techniques that would ensure the perfect reproduction of a text. That is every family in the whole of the Indian continent, Brahmin families, they specialized in one portion of the Vedas. They taught their children, learned from childhood to chant those verses forwards, backwards, crossways, and the different families would check back and forth to see that they have the same transmission, so that when you see this, consider this tradition, you're stunned and amazed to see, that they had, in fact, what we have today is in fact a perfect representation of the original. This is the original text. No other scripture, we read the Bible, you know, it's all debate and confusion as to what is well, they don't even have the original. We don't even have the original Bible. And so the text here is, as they say, the water is always clearest at its source. The Upanishads are like that. So the Upanishads being the first, the most complete, and the most undistorted collection of spiritual truths, deserve to occupy the highest place among spiritual writings, religious writings of the world. Now you think about that. You see if you believe that, or you agree with that. But that was the teaching. Let me give you 3 more arguments for the authority of these scriptures. That is, we're talking about revelation, and we're talking particularly about the Upanishads that are the source texts of the Vedanta. And first claim, I'm going to give you 3 strong claims. You see if you agree with them. First claim is that these revelations, this is these Upanishads, that is the Vedas, are Upaurusheya. That means that they are impersonal. They were not written or composed or authored by a particular person. There's no person involved in the transmission of this knowledge. Now we know in Christian tradition, we know how does revelation, the prophet, the God and the prophet kind of work together, and there's different models. One model is the dictation model. That is, the prophet is there. He has pen in hand. He hears God speaking, and as God speaks, he writes down everything that he hears. That's one model. Another model is that God, that is a personal God, in this case, I guess Jehovah, gives the prophet beautiful ideas. That is, he kind of gives him the idea of what to write. And the prophet, being a poet and a genius writer, he writes down the idea that he's gotten from God. A third model is that God gives the prophet a great vision. And the prophet then, recalling that vision and as what he has seen, he then writes down and describes what he has seen and what it means. Now we can see that all of these three models involve a person. That is, a human. Purusha here, it says a paurusheya. Purusha here just means a person. Particularly, it can mean a human being. And in all these, a human being is involved. And therefore, we know the human mind is corruptible, can make mistakes, has faults, has frailties. So maybe something can be corrupted. But it says here that there's no person involved. And they go further. I'm talking now about the Vedic Brahmins. They go further to say that when they call it a paurusheya, they mean what about, you can say, well, what about somebody like Buddha or Sri Krishna, who's like an incarnation of God? Sri Krishna speaking there on the field of Kurukshetra, delivered all those 18 chapters of the Gita. What about that? Well, that's not revelation. That's called smriti. Why? Because it involves, well, in this case, it involves Sanjaya, who described what he was, who heard what he was saying. But apart from that also, Sri Krishna is a person, also a person. He's a divine person, we could say. He's an incarnation. But still, he's a person. And Vedanta says the Upanishads have nothing to do with any particular person. That is, this Vedanta has no founder. All religions have a founder. It depends, and therefore they're tied up in historicity. And therefore, if one of their founders, like Buddha or Jesus, were shown historically, if you could do such a thing, to show that Jesus never existed, well, that would be kind of the collapse of the whole system. But for a Vedantist, the teachers of the Upanishads, if any one particular teacher of this wisdom were to be proved to not exist, it doesn't affect, it doesn't shake the foundation of our religion. The foundation of our philosophy is not derived, doesn't come down from a particular founder. And they go farther to say, it's also, we want to say, but then where is the authority? We want to have an authority. The authority, we think, is, what about God? Sometimes people look at the Bible and they say, to make their point, they say, well, God said it. I believe it. No, what does it say? God said it. I believe it. That settles it. That's easy. That's easy. God said it. Okay. But in Vedanta, God didn't say the Upanishads. It's no personal God who authored and spoke the Upanishads. The Upanishadic wisdom is independent of all persons, whether they're human or divine or gods or goddesses. It exists, it's independently existing knowledge, which is universal, necessary, and certain. You may say, well, where then does the authority of these scriptures come from? If it doesn't come from prophets, and it doesn't come from the incarnation, it doesn't come from a personal God, where does it come from? Well, we could ask, it's like asking the question, what is the authority, what authority does the sun have to shine? Or what is the authority you have to say that there is a universal law of gravitation? Oh, well, Isaac Newton was a great man, and so therefore we worship Isaac Newton, and that shows that proves the law. That has nothing to do with the law. The law is true because it's knowledge. Knowledge is just awareness of fact. And this may sound a little strange to us because we're raised in a relative. We've been raised in a whole system in a modern world that teaches us about relativity. Everything's relative. Whereas in ancient times, in ancient India, in ancient Greece, and medieval times, classical, they had a totally different classical, absolute worldview. It's a different worldview. That there are absolute truths. The truth exists. That there is a way things are, and that you can know the way things are, and that you can know absolute truths. These are all things we raise our eyebrows. We think, wait a minute, everything's relative. You can't say it. You can't say, no. There is a rock bottom to truth. That's the old classical it's a different worldview. It's an absolute worldview. It's not a relative worldview. There is the relative world, which is the world of changing phenomena, and there's the absolute world of knowledge. What am I now? What's our thing? Oh, we're doing the three things. The last three arguments, or not arguments, claims. I said strong claims. Okay, second strong claim. First strong claim was that no person's involved. I mean, a person is our authority for Vedanta doesn't come from any person or personal God or incarnation. Second claim here is that these scriptures are anadi. That means they are without beginning and without end. Now that makes sense in light of what I just said, that knowledge, that is, the way things are that's eternal. That's the way they were in the beginning, the way they are now, and the way they will be. And so you remember how in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, there was a man Oh, this is Shivaratri. Okay, this guy wrote a hymn to Shiva. And he was this devotee, he was so proud of that hymn. It was just like in perfect Sanskrit and meter and so poetic and beautiful, and all the devotion of his heart went into that. He finally thought, I've got to show this to somebody. And so he went all the way up to Mount Kailash to show Shiva himself this hymn. And when he got there, he pulls out this piece of paper. He's about to read this hymn, and he looks over at the bull, which is the carrier of Shiva, Nandi the bull. The bull smiles at him. And the guy looks there, and he sees that on every tooth of the bull's tooth is a word of his hymn. And then Sri Ramakrishna comments on that. Because you know the meaning of that? Well, that means that these words have existed eternally. Now, the hymn is not the Vedas, but we say that sometimes too. People have an inspiration for, say, an idea, a song comes to them. Where did it come from? Well, it comes from the superconscious. It comes down from the superconscious. It's an eternal melody, which they've discovered, just like you discover a law. It existed, it's a nadi. That means it existed eternally. It has no beginning and has no end. And just as the Upanishad, just as the Vedic wisdom knowledge has no beginning or end, so too the religion which is derived from the Vedas is also without beginning or without end. That's why this is called the Sanatana Dharma, the eternal religion. Vedanta, that is the Upanishads, constitute the teachings of the Upanishads, constitute the eternal religion. That means without beginning, truths which are without beginning and without end. Okay, that's the second claim. Let me give you the third claim. And hold on to your hats for this one. Because this is all Indian tradition, old-fashioned, orthodox Indian tradition. That's what I preach. And the third claim here is this doctrine of inerrancy. Inerrancy means that the scriptures, now all religions, of course, claim that their scriptures are inerrant. That is, there's no errors. There are no mistakes. That everything that's there written can be trusted, and we can have faith in as for guidance in spiritual life and as matters of fact. That there's no mistakes in Scripture. There are no false statements or misleading statements. This is a doctrine that was preached by the Brahmins in ancient India. And it was a doctrine that was then believed in by the majority of Orthodox Hindus, and is maybe today. I don't know. That is, these scriptures are inerrant. The idea is based on our first claim, that is about a Paurusheya. That means that there's no human authorship. There's been no person involved. And so the claim rests on the impersonal nature of the scriptures. That is, there is no opportunity for human failing or faults or foibles to have confused the teaching. That's why it's considered to be inerrant, because it's a revelation. The rishis sat in meditation, they made their minds crystal calm and clear, like glass, and therefore the knowledge is self-revealing. It revealed itself. Take, for example, particularly, this inerrancy claim particularly refers to key sentences in the Upanishads called the Mahavakyas. Take, for example, the Mahavakya, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, all this is Brahman. Now that's a fundamental teaching. The idea is that it is inerrant, that this is a fact. It's a universal, necessary, and certain. That means it's true everywhere, in all possible worlds. That it is a necessary truth, that is, it can't possibly be otherwise, and that it is certain. That is, it's existed for anadi. It's from the beginning of time. It's existed throughout the periods of time. It's never been contradicted. And so that's the criterion for truth. Truth is that which exists throughout the three periods of time and is never contradicted. That's knowledge. And you remember Sherlock Holmes? When you have, what's his quote? He says, when you have eliminated the impossible, the mystery, how to solve the mystery. Well, when you've eliminated the impossible, then whatever remains, however improbable, must be the case, is the truth. So similarly, here, when the idea being, when you have eliminated all possible sources of error, truth reveals itself, and that must be the truth. So that's the three claims. You see if you believe it. So that was our argument this morning. We were talking here about the touchstone of the Veda and how their claim to authority. We gave Swami Vivekananda gave us three arguments. That is the first, the most complete and the most undistorted collection. We went through those. Then I gave you three basic, strong claims about the Orthodox Indian Vedic tradition. That is, that these scriptures are impersonal, that they are without beginning, without end, and that their truth is certain for all matters of spiritual practice and understanding. So that's the touchstone. Yeah.
We thank Swami Vedarupananda for his very interesting talk. The Swami stays at the Swami Vivekananda House in South Pasadena, which is a place of pilgrimage. He has the good fortune to be the caretaker of that house, and one can visit the house and sit in the room which was Swami Vivekananda's bedroom and enjoy the beautiful vibrations there. Just give a call to the house, you'll get the number on our bulletin, and schedule an appointment. Once a month we go as a group, typically on the Sunday when Swami Sarvadevananda speaks here. You'll go as a group to have a retreat, a little mini retreat on Sunday afternoon in South Pasadena. It's a wonderful way to remember Swami Vivekananda, meditate in his room, and enjoy some spiritual community. I think most of our congregation has decided to skip the Sunday morning and is going to come this evening, because we have, starting at 6 p.m., the Shiva Ratri celebration. Our first watch will be at 6, second watch at 8:30, third watch at 10, and fourth watch at 11:30. And there'll be talks between the watches, and the prasad will be served around 1 a.m. So if you'd like to join us, the doors are open. Swami Vedarupananda will presumably go to the greenhouse living room. Are you up for that today? Yeah, he'll be going to the greenhouse living room, the living room right next to the bookshop, for discussion, Q&A. Any and all are welcome to join him for that. And next week, we are celebrating the birthday of Sri Ramakrishna. So Sunday won't be a usual talk, it will be a worship service. Puja starts at 10:30 a.m. and will be, includes the traditional Homa fire worship service. And then at 2 o'clock we'll be serving the blessed food, the prasad. And in the afternoon there'll be also a program. First singing the names of Ramakrishna, and then talks from some of you. There'll be probably 8 or 10 devotees who will present short talks, followed by a talk by Swami Sarvadevanandaji, and of course the special arati in the evening. So that's about it. Our arati today is at 3 p.m. to allow the time for us to clean up the shrine and get ready for the evening worship. All right?
Om Dyo Shanti Antariksha Ham Shanti Prithivi Shanti Apa Shanti O Shadaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shanti Vishwe Deva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarva Shanti Shantireva Shanti Same Shantiredhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, peace is in heaven, peace is on the earth, peace is in the sky and in the waters. The herbs and plants and trees are full of peace. The gods are peaceful. May this eternal universal peace enter our souls and beings. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.